Hello, I am a housewife in my late 30s. There is a saying that if a household gains wealth, the firstborn suffers. But if a household declares bankruptcy after being wealthy, the youngest one suffers. For my in-laws, it was the former. My father-in-law was addicted to gambling and sold the land handed down from generation to generation. He even sold the only remaining house and passed away, leaving my husband to take on the role of head of the household at a young age. According to my mother-in-law, my husband was very intelligent from a young age and excelled in his studies. He was well known as a genius, but due to his family's dire poverty, he couldn't even dream of going to college. He worked during the day and attended high school at night. He is my son, but the oldest one is a perfect person. He suffered greatly as a child due to his poor parents, and went through many hardships. As his mother, I feel guilty that I couldn't do more for him than just provide a difficult life. My mother-in-law used to always talk to me about him in this way. As she said, there is no one like my husband. He is sincere and caring, and I have never seen him ignore anyone in need. After being discharged as a medic from the National Guard service, my husband became a police officer. He would use all his money to help elderly people living alone and disadvantaged youth. On his days off, he would check on older seniors with disabilities, never taking a break. Since his mother passed away 9 years ago, he has taken on the responsibility of raising his 10-year-old younger brother and sending him to college. When he got married, he even took out a loan to buy his brother a newlywed home. My mother would often criticize my husband for being too kind, but at the time, like my mom, I didn't understand how much my husband cared for his younger brother who grew up without their parents. So I supported my husband's decisions. He was a kind man, and helping others was just a natural part of who he was. However, looking back, I regret not stopping my husband when enough was enough. Why? It was because of what my husband's younger brother did a while ago. They used to be very close, and their brotherly love for each other was deep, but their relationship turned sour a few years ago, making it worse than that of strangers. It all started when my brother-in-law's wife hit the jackpot with her investment in stocks and made a lot of money. It is said that when people come into a large amount of money, they often become generous. However, the reality was, the more they earned money, the more they became miserly, forgetting about their origins. When my brother-in-law and his wife suddenly became wealthy, they started to become snobbish. Then, relying on their newly founded wealth, they started to act rude and treat people condescendingly, regardless of age. I felt like slapping them a good one. If it were me in the past, I probably would have done that. I persevered by chanting to calm myself down. Actually, I have a secret that only my husband knows. To talk about that, I would have to go back 20 years of my life when I was just 16 years old. At that time, I was a wayward student. I wasn't like that originally, but when my dad passed away when I was 14, I started to live with my mom. Shortly after my father died, my mom would bring home her boyfriends often because she said she was lonely. In my eyes, my mom wasn't a human being, and I couldn't understand how she could bring strange men into our house when my father had just passed away. So I often fought with my mom. Mom, can't you live without men? How could you bring men home all the time with an excuse that you're so lonely? Don't you think about me? Aren't you ashamed to do that in front of me? I would say. My mom would respond, "You stupid bitch. How dare you say that to me? I fed you and raised you, but you're not even grateful, and how dare you say that against your own mother?" She would then say, "That's right, I can't live without men. I feel like I'm going to die of loneliness, so what should I do? I have only one daughter, but rather than worrying about your own mother, you are saying those hurtful words to me. What have I done so wrong? Did I commit adultery or steal someone else's boyfriend? Tell me, what's wrong with meeting and dating men? Don't mind my business and pay attention to your own life, you fool." We never found a solution, and were always against each other. It became uncomfortable to see each other, so I hated going home. Then I started hanging around with friends in a similar home situation as me, and hit the streets at night, doing bad things, of course. We often got into fights with other school bullies, or extorted money from students from affluent families. bullying them. I was hopeless. Back then, I hated the world because everyone seemed happy, except for me. It made me so angry over even minor things. It was like an excuse, but if I had led an ordinary life like everyone else and had been raised and loved in a family like theirs, then I didn't think I would have acted that way. I was just very immature. One day I was hungry, so I went to a market in the neighborhood with my friends and stole some bread and cookies. But while running away, my foot got caught on the doorway and I fell. So, I was the only one who got caught. At that time, the police who came to the market after receiving the call was my current husband. The market owner yelled that I should be put into jail immediately when she saw the police, demanding that I repay for all the items that got lost up to that time. Trash like that should be isolated from society. How will they grow up to be decent human beings when they are already stealing other people's things when they are still wet behind their ears? You can tell their future when you see how they act now. I bet her parents are the same way as you, rotten bitch, to make you turn into a thief. I'm curious about your mom who gave birth to a bitch like you. At that moment I choked up. No matter how wrong I was, I became upset because she brought up my mom, who was innocent. It was then that the police, whose face turned red, yelled at the market owner lady, "Ma'am, aren't you being too harsh? You must also be raising kids, but how could you say such things to a student? It's not like the student stole money. All she took was some bread and cookies, not money. Can't you see that she stole them because she was hungry? As an adult, couldn't you have any tolerance? Of course stealing is wrong, but at least try to think about how hungry she must have been to do that. But you're even cursing at the student's parents. Do you have to go that far? That's way too much." At that, the market owner lady said nothing more. She said that she wouldn't file a complaint if what was missing previously would be paid for, and said it would be $100. But I had no money on me, not even a penny, so I just kept my head down. The police paid for it with his own money and took me out of the store. Until then, in my head I was fraught with fear that once I got to the police station, they would call my mom, and how could I face her? But the police took me to a small restaurant nearby instead of the police station. Then he ordered some hamburgers, fries, and salads. "Let's eat first. After eating, we'll take care of your case. I've been starved before, so I know. When you're hungry, you can't think properly." He handed me a bottle of ketchup and smiled kindly. I didn't notice it when I saw him at the market, but up close he seemed very young, as if the age difference between him and me couldn't be much. Still, he acted much older than those older people, more than my mom or that lady at the market. Since the market owner lady didn't file a charge against me because she got all her money back, my case was closed after I received admonition from the head of the police department at the police station. But because I was a minor, inevitably my mom had to be called to come get me at the police station. My mom, with flashy makeup and clothes, came with her boyfriend to the police station. As soon as she saw me, she slapped me hard. "You should just kill yourself, you spoiled bitch. How dare you shame me? Did I raise you to grow up as a thief? I feel so sorry for myself to have a daughter like you. Officer, couldn't you just put her in jail right now? I don't even want to see her. If you're going to be this way, why didn't you follow your dad and die too? Then I could live freely." A total stranger like that police officer even thought of me, worrying that I might be hungry at first. But my mom, who gave birth to me, did not. She only thought of herself. I kept my head down and just shed tears. Then, that police officer who was watching approached me and said quietly to come to the police station whenever I was hungry. Someone once said that people hurt people the most, but they also save people. That day I was saved by that police officer, my future husband, because I vowed to never do anything bad to make me come to the police station again in consideration for the police officer who was kind to me. I vowed that I would stand as an upright citizen in front of this police officer by not doing bad things and living a life properly. When I set a goal to do something, my enthusiasm also surged. I became a hard-working model student who started studying again, something I had ignored up to that time. Whenever I had a hard time, I would go by the police station and stand afar, watching my husband. After my senior year in high school, which was the most intense time for me to study in my life, I was able to enter a prestigious women's university. It wasn't an Ivy League college, but just a few years ago everyone had given up on me. But when I got accepted at that university, my homeroom teacher, my classmates, as well as my mom were all taken aback because it was something close to a miracle. When I heard the news of my college acceptance, I immediately ran to the police station, and then I proudly announced it to my future husband. "Officer, please wait for me for 4 years. When I graduate from college, then I want you to go out with me. So until then, never marry another woman." He was bewildered by my sudden outburst because at first he didn't even remember me. However, he thanked me shyly at the proposal of a bold high school girl. I was 100% sincere, so in spite of my embarrassment, I had to explain to him about my shameful act a few years ago when I was caught stealing bread from a nearby market. It was only after explaining my past that my husband and other officers at the police station recognized me. They all congratulated me for my college admission. After that day, I often stopped by the police station to check up on my husband, worrying if he had girls around him. Before I knew it, people at the police station started to tease my husband, saying that his bride was coming whenever I came by. Every time that happened, my husband's face would turn red even to his ears, and he would run away. He rejected me, but after I kept going by for over 2 years, he started to open up to me little by little. When I was a high school girl in my school uniform, I must have looked young, but I became a woman as a college student wearing makeup. He no longer treated me like a child. We finally formally started dating after my unwavering visits to the police station for 2 years and 3 months. At that time, my husband had a younger brother who was in high school, and whether he was very close to his older brother or whether he had no common sense, he came along whenever we dated. Back then, his younger brother was very affectionate and kind toward me. Since I had no siblings, I thought he was very cute. We became close to that extent that when he became a senior and went to take his SAT exams on behalf of his sick mother, I would take him to the exam location. My husband was on emergency duty, so he couldn't make it to his brother's exam center. Even before marriage, I went to my in-laws' house often and acted as the daughter-in-law, so I waited for my future brother-in-law in front of the school gate until he came out after the exam, among other waiting parents who were praying. When my future brother-in-law came out after the exam and found me still waiting for him, he was surprised and became flustered for burdening me. "Bonnie, when I get my first pay from my work, I will make sure to buy you a present, so make sure to marry my brother and don't break up with him." Unlike my shy husband, his younger brother was good-natured, and he took my hand trembling from the cold. Luckily, my brother-in-law got high scores on his SAT and got into a prestigious university without any difficulty. Until he entered college, he worked part-time to earn his spending money. And as he promised, he gave me a pair of earrings as a present. They weren't silver, but cheap ones from a street vendor, but it was a very meaningful gift that I still keep with me. After I graduated from college, pursuant to my major, I got a job at an education-related company. In the fall, I finally got married. People around me asked why I was getting married so early, but in truth, I didn't get along with my mom, so I wanted to escape from home as quickly as possible. So I wanted to get married earlier. Some brides might suffer from conflict with their in-laws, but in my case, I liked my mother-in-law more than my own mother. My mother-in-law was kind to me, saying that I got married into a family that had no money, so she was worried about me being so young and facing difficulties. For a few years, I received a lot of love from my mother-in-law and lived in a normal, happy home. But the year that I got pregnant with my first child, she suddenly passed away. When she was no longer around to help, I regretted relying on her for making meals or doing house chores for me. I mourned for a long time because I felt so sorry that I didn't do more for my loving mother-in-law. The empty space left by her was a lot bigger than I had ever imagined. My husband tried to be a better head of the household to fill the emptiness left by his mother, especially for his younger brother, who was still a college student. Even my brother-in-law seemed to realize how his older brother felt, and he tried not to be a burden by studying hard and working to earn money to lessen his brother's burden. I was impressed to see him like that. So, for a few years I was able to have a stable married life between two brothers who were very caring for each other. I erased all the traces of being a truant student in the past. On top of that, my husband got transferred to another police station in a different city, so no one knew of my dark past. In the meantime, my brother-in-law went into the army, and after finishing his college, he got a job at a medical equipment company. He met a girl there who was in the accounting department, and they got married. Both of them were just starting out with their first permanent positions, so they had no money saved up, but they had to rush into the marriage because she had gotten pregnant. So we had to arrange to get a place for the newlyweds. Because not only my husband, but I was also very close to my brother-in-law at that time, I thought it was something we just had to do naturally. In fact, I stepped forward to search about bank loans. Because my brother-in-law's girlfriend came from a poor family, we had to pay for all of the wedding expenses. It was the same when she had the baby, but I didn't feel bad to pay for her. Then maybe 3 years ago, during the stock boom, my sister-in-law secretly bought some stocks from the savings, which made a big hit. She earned enough profits that amounted to the price of a house. Given the circumstances, thereafter my brother-in-law and his wife both got a taste of their success and started investing aggressively in stocks. In less than 2 years they earned millions. But that was the beginning of their misfortune. When they got some money, my brother and sister-in-law both quit their jobs and started investing in stocks earnestly at home. Those who have been into stocks will know this was not a sustainable way of living, because you must put up a graph on your monitor all day long and have to spend your entire life looking at it. The problem was parenting. No matter how good money is, children need to be taken good care of. But both were addicted to stocks and neglected their child. I once went to their home to deliver some food and found their child eating a piece of moldy bread. I ran and took it away, then called my sister-in-law Kathy. Even though your stock investment is important, don't you need to feed Megan properly? She almost ate the moldy bread. Aren't you feeding her? Then she snatched her daughter away, who was in my arms, and snapped at me. Who are you to preach to me? You're not even my mother-in-law. You mind your own business and don't care about what I feed her. Just because you have no child, you're trying to act like a mother to someone else's child. When she said that, tears welled up in my eyes. It was because I was diagnosed as infertile a few years ago. So I become self-conscious whenever the topic of children comes up. My sister-in-law knew this but still drove a stake into my wounds, so I felt very hurt. I didn't help them expecting anything in return, but I didn't think she would stab me in the back like this. So I didn't say anything and just left to go home. But after that incident, she didn't even call me to apologize. I felt betrayed, so from that day on, I stopped doing things for her. But it wasn't just me who received such offensive treatment. My brother-in-law started to act insolently towards my husband as well. Richard, for how long are you going to work as a policeman? I heard that a police officer with just a high school degree has a hard time getting promoted. Why not quit the police and look for another job? If you get any older, at your age, it will be difficult to find a job. If there's no work, do you want me to look for one for you? Just because they had some money, I got so mad at their bragging about it that my hands trembled. So I stepped forward and gave him a piece of my mind. Brent, how could you say that to your brother? What's wrong with being a police officer? So far, by working as a police officer, with the money he earned, he paid for your college tuition and your wedding expenses. When you got all that help, you never said anything. But now that you're earning money, are you disrespecting your brother? If you say it like that once more, I won't put up with it. Boney, why are you bringing that up now? Do you want that money back for what you paid for the tuition and for the down payment of the house? You're so tacky. Okay, how much is that? I will pay back twice, no, 3 times of what you spent. Then the matter is closed, right? This is so pathetic. He got even angrier than me and left in the middle of dinner. If he were my real brother, I would have grabbed him by the collar and thrown him, but I couldn't since he was my husband's younger brother. So I sat there huffing and puffing from feeling betrayed. My husband quietly put down his fork and got up and went into our bedroom. When I saw his drooping shoulders from the back, I felt a deep pang in my heart. Even though he didn't say anything, I knew how badly he must have felt. After that day, my brother-in-law and his wife stopped coming to our house. Even though I didn't expect it, the money my brother-in-law announced he would repay in double or triple the amount was not kept. Then one day, just as I got to work, I received a phone call from the police station. What? My husband got injured? How bad? My husband, who went out on patrol, tripped over illegally dumped construction materials and injured his legs. I guess my husband didn't want them to call me, but the injury was severe enough to require hospitalization, so they called me. I took a day off from work and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, he needed emergency surgery, so I had to sign the consent form. After my husband went into the operating room, I cried for a long time in the waiting room. The doctor said that even after surgery, the condition of his legs would not be the same as before. I was shocked to hear that my husband, in his mid-40s, may have to limp when he was so confident about his health. I was worried that it would be very hard for my husband to accept and that his pride would be crushed. After 4 hours of surgery, my husband was taken to a recovery room. I kept crying to see him so vulnerable, lying in the hospital bed helplessly, when he used to be like a big, strong mountain to me. I didn't want to be caught crying, so I went into the restroom. Then I prayed to my deceased mother-in-law. Mother, this person who has struggled so hard all his life, please help him to walk normally. If he has to limp, it's not fair. Please help him. I will do my best and never forget you. I knew I couldn't change what was to be, but I had no one to turn to, so I kept praying desperately for a long time. When I returned, the doctor who operated on my husband was there. He looked at me with red eyes from crying for so much and comforted me, saying that the surgery went well and not to worry. The injury was not in a bad section, so with physical therapy, my husband would not limp. I was so relieved by that statement. Without realizing it, I cried out loudly, "Thank you, Mother." After waking up from anesthesia, my husband didn't even think about his injured legs, but started worrying about me instead. He said he was sorry to startle me. Why are you sorry? It's you who's injured. Those bastards who dumped the waste there should be the ones to be sorry. Wait and see. As soon as you are discharged from this hospital, I won't let those bastards go. Only after seeing me lose my temper, my husband smiled. The surgery went well, but he needed to rehabilitate, so he had to rest at home for a while. 1 month later, when I came home from work, my brother-in-law and his wife were there. When I called to tell them that their brother was hurt, he didn't even come to the hospital. I thought they came because they were worried about my husband, but when I entered, they quickly stopped talking to him. They were acting suspiciously, so I deliberately sat next to my husband. "What were we talking about?" I asked, "And just because I came in, you stopped talking all of a sudden?" "Honey, what were you talking about?" My husband looked at me with a conflicted expression and turned his head away to avoid my gaze. It was then that my sister-in-law spoke up. "Now that it has come to this, what's there to hide? After all, it's a good suggestion for Richard too. With his leg injured, he won't be able to do police work like before. It's too dangerous these days with criminals carrying knives and guns. What if something drastic happens? He doesn't have strong legs anymore. People don't respect the police anymore. They just call them pigs and mouth off. So it's better to quit your job as a cop now. We will take care of you." I doubted my ears for a moment. It's one thing to tell my husband to quit being a cop, but I couldn't understand why they would say they would take care of him. When I listened, it meant that they would give him a job. Not too long ago, my brother-in-law opened a consulting company, and he wanted his brother to work there. My husband, who usually waited patiently for others to finish talking, cut off his sister-in-law in the middle of her sentence and refused their offer. I wondered why he was acting like that. However, when I heard more from my sister-in-law, I knew why my husband did it. She asked why. "Is it because it's your brother's company?" "The position is for a driver, but it's like an executive secretary. Besides, you're his older brother, so he would pay you well. Honestly, it's easy to find someone else for the position, but we're offering it to you because of all the things you have done for us. And with your leg injured, we didn't think you could safely do police work anymore. Plus, with those injuries, you wouldn't be able to get a well-paying job. So we're offering out of big consideration for you, but how could you flatly refuse? Is it because of your pride or what? As I listened more, they were asking my husband to be a driver for his younger brother. At that moment, all my suppressed anger exploded, and the hot personality from my past that I had hidden suddenly burst out. What did you say? You crazy bunch of bastards. What? You can't get a job with those legs? How dare you put those kinds of curses on your smelly mouth of yours? Did you think you could mess around with us that easily? Do you want to see how I could send you straight to hell right here and now? The two of you today, do you want to see your heads say hello to your asses? Today, do you want to see your heads say hello to your asses? How dare you talk that way to my husband, offering him a job as your driver when you're nothing but the worst, ungrateful pieces of shit of the century that I have seen in my whole life. I cursed out vehemently and viciously, straight at my brother-in-law and his wife. The two of them, who saw me like this for the first time, just dropped their chins, frozen. Even my husband, who knew of my past, was just as surprised. All this while I lived very cautiously, but I just couldn't stand them that day. Even if I never saw those two again, I wanted to teach them a lesson. Since when did you guys come into some money? Are you bragging about it in front of us? You didn't even have enough money to rent a studio, so we got loans to get a place for you. But did you ever make a single payment on it? You bastard, you said that you would pay double or triple the money we spent. But why haven't you done anything? And yet how dare you make your brother be your servant? How ungrateful of a bastard are you? Stop glaring with those eyes, you bastard, before I pull your eyeballs out with this fork. And you blabber with that smelly mouth of yours. Is my husband your friend? How dare you blabber your gibberish at someone who's twice your age? Haven't you learned any etiquette? Offering a job? My ass, you better do it when I'm telling you nicely. Before midnight today, you better transfer money into our checking account. Not only for your tuition, but also for the loan payments, including the down payment with interest. Since your wife is an accountant, she should be good at adding numbers. But if the amount is wrong, for every dollar, I will make sure to penalize you triple that amount. So, you better do it accurately. Got that? Furiously, I kicked those two out of our house and locked the door. Then, in a few hours, a large sum of money came into my husband's bank account. In fact, I wasn't sure if the amount was correct and calculated with interest. I had never thought of getting it back, and I was just gonna let it pass. But my husband has not checked in yet, and he chuckled. Until now, he thought he had been protecting me, but that day he saw that I was his guardian. Who cares who the guardian is? While living together, we just need to care for each other. After 3 months of rehabilitation, my husband went back to work. According to my husband, he was still not fully back to normal, but after a few months, he could run around like before. And after that day, my husband developed a habit of putting his hand over my mouth whenever my face turns red from becoming angry. He told me that he was doing that to protect my reputation, but I guess he has to continue doing that to stop me. Oh, my brother-in-law's consulting business didn't last for a few months and went bankrupt. The stocks they owned plummeted, and they lost so much money, causing insufficient funds to run the company. Wealth and authority are temporary power, and they didn't know that they aren't forever. That's why everyone works hard every day. To all of you who work hard every day, I hope you're blessed with good fortune. Thank you for listening to my story, and take care. Please cheer for me, and share your words of wisdom in the comment section. Liking and subscribing would be a big help to me. Have a wonderful day.